We will be on the camera manipulation prefab. We have a couple of things that get set up before actually looking at the prefab. We're going to add some scenes and create some. So build settings, we're going to add the title screen. We're going to add the loading screen, and we're going to add the finishing screen. Then we're going to add a new scene, delete the camera, prefab, map objects. We're going to use this one, save into scenes. It's called test one. We're going to add it to the build settings. Let's save it twice. Save scene as scenes. It's called test two, and then add it to the build settings also. Let's go to scenes, test one. Now at this point, saving works. Go to the next screen. Looks the same, but we can go back and forth between them. Prefab, in-game objects, map helpers, camera manipulation. Drag on the screen, snap to the ground with V. Hit play. And when you touch this, the camera will follow the character. There's a little bit of a buffer so the camera doesn't jerk around so much. There are some options on here. By default, it targets the character. If you have this clicked off, then you have to choose an object for it to follow. Lock X and lock Y, we'll talk about those later. No lerp snap. If you looked, when we touched this, it went from the where the camera was and it slowly went there. We click this, it'll snap there, and then it'll go do what it's supposed to do. One-time activate. If you has a box collider which causes the trigger when you touch it, the box collider disables and you can only trigger it once. Revert on exit will, when you touch it, it'll do what it's supposed to do. It'll follow the character, but when you leave this area, it'll go back to the previous settings. Turn that off. Let's make the screen a little bit bigger. Go to map objects, block 32 by 32. We'll have a simple room. There's another prefab, it's just called simple, which is it's just the blocks. We'll pull it up and snap it to the other one. We can get rid of these walls. 19 wall, delete. Do you want to lose a prefab? Yeah. Okay. We're gonna, yeah, I'll do it now. Every of these simple rooms has a thing called center of room. It's just there to know where the center is. We'll click here and we'll just make it so we can see it. We'll do it for the other one as well. So at this point, we have, here's the exit to the next screen. We'll move it to the edge. So we have two screen wide. Here's the center, here's entrance, here's exit. If we would run, it would work. Touch it. Now we want to deal with the fact that we can see outside the edges of the world. We want to lock the camera to a certain axis. So we want to lock this to this position. Here's the center of room. We want to lock it to this y-axis. We don't want the y to move. Let me maximize it. So we touch it, it doesn't go on this kind of street. So we solved one problem. The next part is we got to deal with hitting the edge here. So we only want to initially scroll the screen when we're about to hit the edge of the screen. So let's increase the size of this. If you look down here, we want to hit it when we just get off the screen, so we'll one off the screen. Now, let's play just to show triggers here. We hit the edge of the screen, it works. Now what we want is another trigger that says, hey, stop the camera when we're, about here. So let's copy and paste this. We'll put it right about, let's put it here. What we want to do is lock the camera to this screen when we hit this point. So we use this center. It's the center here. We want this one. We want to lock the X. We want to lock the Y. And that should work. We hit this one, and it'll lock to this position. Locks to this position. Now we gain control over the character again. And we have the problem over here, so we got to do that on this side also. Let copy and paste again. We'll put it right about here. We want to lock to this center screen. So we use this center. We got this one. Center. Center. Locks to the screen. Goes back and forth. This will lock to the right screen. Go back. Gain control again, and this one will lock to this side. So this all works fine. Now we have another problem, is that when we go on this screen, oops, let's fix that first. Since we have our default room, it has a spawn controller. The character spawns at this position here, and he will come back in at this position here. What we want to do is we want him to come in over here. Walk, walk, walk. So our problem is the character spawned where he's supposed to, but the camera defaults over here. So we need another camera trigger here. So let's just grab the default prefab again. Map helpers. We want it to be where he spawns in at. So we'll just make it so it's over top. What we want to do is lock to this screen. So we'll click on this center of room. We want this center of room to lock. To lock. So we'll lock to the screen, but since it's here, nothing happens. When we go back here, you'll see it goes to where it should be, but it slowly, goes over there. We don't want that. There's an option to fix that. So we'll click on it. It says no lerp snap. Saw at the beginning of the video. And you can see we actually go where we're supposed to. Another problem solved. Final problem we're going to have is, let's assume, since the save point, you can save at any point you want. Let's assume we saved in between these two. Now if I reload, the camera defaults to here, but the character is actually loaded where he should be. On the save prefab, there's an option that says set new camera default position. This happens when you save the game. It'll say this is the default position of the camera. So we'll do it again. Go here, go here. Game saved. Now if we load, you can see, we're fine. This. So at this point, we have a fully functioning scrolling room. Now, even though we dealt with the fact that, if he's in between there, that the camera will default when you save, there's probably a possibility that you're not going to catch them all, or, maybe he saved between here or here. Things get a little bit messy in that regard, so it's a little bit better to just make it so that the player can't shoot the save points. So you go into the save thing, you actually just say no bullets. And when you do that, the save point gets the little circle thing around it, and the player can't shoot. Touching works. So this kind of, if you're doing a lot of scrolling rooms, it's a lot easier just to say, hey, don't shoot at the save points, because you don't have to worry about, them accidentally going in between here and saving. Then you got to deal with, well, oh, he's in between here. I better put another manipulation thing here so that when he touches here, the camera will follow him. If it was longer, you just have to spread these out. Just make sure that you deal with all this, what happens when the characters in different places. I mean, in theory, you should probably have these a lot taller, not that tall, just so, you never know if the character could find some way of jumping over. Let's grab another camera manipulation. We're going to say, we're going to deal with, let's not target the player, let's target an object. So let's create an object. We'll call it test target. We'll give it so we can actually click on it. Oops, it put it as a child. Get rid of that. So we want to target this testing target. Target this object. So when I touch this target, oops, let's get that. When I target this object, the camera will follow this test target now. Just like we did with the character, just targets an object instead. So we'll take this opportunity to, how we horizontally made a thing. Let's lock this to up and down. So let's pick the center room. We'll lock it to this X. So when I hit this target, here, click on the test target, it, same thing as the horizontal. So you could do the same thing. If you had a really tall room or you get a weirdly misshapen room, you could put these things horizontally, change X wider and the Y to 1. And you just gotta target the right thing. Another thing you can do when you're targeting a test object, an alternate object, we'll click on revert on exit. So that, let's get rid of the lock. You can click on these and you can hit delete at any time. You could delete the game object or test target. Put it back on because we want to target this object. Let's assume this object was, I don't know, above the screen somewhere. Now when we play, we have revert on exit. You could walk here and say, oh, what's up there? And then when you leave the area, it'll go back. It's a way of, if you want to see above you or below you, or maybe you want to say, hey, maybe a screen away, I want you to look at this object just to show the player where it is. Probably a couple final things. If you click, you can see the script that's attached to this. If you click on it, it'll go to the folder where it is. If you double click on the thing, it'll open up monodevelop. You can actually read the script, the comment at the beginning. It'll tell you kind of what it does. All the code below. These triggers pretty sure you don't want purple triggers when you're actually playing a game. These are just for show. You see, you got the box collider. That's the important thing with the trigger on it. The sprite render is just so we can see it as we're testing. You just click this button for sprite render. There, it's gone. So even though let's get rid of these two. Even though they're not visibly there anymore, jump over that. As long as the trigger's there, it still works. So pretty much when you're doing that, if you want to, a smart thing to do is you create an empty, zeroed out, just say camera holders or something. Just make these the child. So you should probably put like objects in folders. So then you could always, since they're all the same, if you want to, you can actually shift click all of these. And it is a little dot here, but if you click these, you can toggle them all at once. So it's a lot easier. You could just say, when you're testing, you can see what's going on, and then when you're gonna compile the game or something, you could just say, oh, turn them off, and the screen should all work. I think that should be it. I kind of did this one first because this is a little bit, that's why it's in like a subfolder. It's a little bit more confusing of how things work. Sometime even this, you might have to put like there's an enable disable trigger also, because sometimes you don't want some of these to actually work all the time. Oops, I disabled the whole thing. So yeah, we'll go through it one more time just to show you what we did. We touch this, it goes to where that trigger thing was. When you walk off of it, it goes back to default. This one focuses on this screen, but since it's here, nothing happens. Trigger here. Now we can follow the character. This one will focus on the right screen. And this one also focuses on the screen, but since we're here, it doesn't do anything. This is our generic screen that we just had, so we can test this. Then we go back. We're here where we are. This will focus on this screen. This will give you control, locks to the character. This will lock to this left screen. So it gives you a simple example of actually how to use this trigger. So you can actually make screens that are wider, than one. If the screen was like really huge and you didn't care about clipping the camera out of bounds or anything, you wouldn't have to lock to anything. Kind of like how we did. Let's see, the lock to the character. If you didn't, kind of like how we had when we started, we initially put this. If you were in the center and you didn't care if they saw the outside edge, you could just do it this way too. That's the default, so it's a lot easy. Pretty easy just to throw these on the screen. And that's it.